Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to try this again because I just recorded and this mic was off the whole time. But hello. I tried to start this video yesterday while I was baking a pie, and that didn't work out well because I just don't like to film while I'm baking. So anyway, we're gonna film it today here as a sit down, and we're gonna talk about prioritization of short-term goals. If you're new here, hi, I'm Danielle. I make YouTube videos on my personal finance journey, how I'm doing that while trying to enjoy my life along the way. If that interests you, then hit that subscribe button. If you want to see more of me, I also write a newsletter every week. I'm aiming at every week. So if you want to subscribe to just like hear what I have to say about pop culture, more money stuff, or just general thoughts and pictures of my life, then you can subscribe. I will put the link in the description. But anyway, let's jump into this video because it has been 30 minutes since I've been sitting here on mute. So, prioritization of goals for the last 2 months, almost 90 days. I'm almost at 90 days at my new job. And before that, I was unemployed for 11 months. And so for that 11 months of unemployment, I just felt like I couldn't have any goals that were tied to money. And I felt like I kind of was just like living to get my next job. And my life was on hold until then. Now that I have income, now that I have this job and I feel pretty good in it and secure, I'm like, okay, I can make plans for things and I have all these things that I want to do. But I can't do everything. Like Paula Pant, a great personal finance expert who I've been following since day one, says you can afford anything, but not everything. And really what that means is like, yeah, you can do whatever you want, but you can't do it all without things getting, being impacted, right? You can't do everything. You have to kind of think about what you're going to prioritize and when. And so I've always really liked that because it makes you think about what are you going to value in that decision of like whether you do this thing or whether you do that thing if you can't have both. Like where are you going to choose to go? And so as I think about these goals that I have, and I have been thinking about them in like short-term, longer-term goals. In the short term, thinking about just like through the end of this year. And longer term, next year, next 5 years. What do I actually want to do and how do I think about them? Like, what am I going to prioritize? So I want to share something that I created. But before I go into that, I also want to talk about how this would look if I had debt. I don't have debt. I am debt-free. But if I did have credit card debt or student loan debt or any high interest debt, I would prioritize that first and foremost, just so I could give myself that freedom of making these choices, right? Because when we're tied to high interest debt, we are paying a lot to others, these debt collectors, these banks and credit card companies, and you don't really own your time and the things that you do. So for me with credit card debt, I feel like that would be the first thing I want to tackle because I wouldn't want to get myself further into credit card debt, and I would want to get a handle of that before I start thinking about other ways to complicate my life further. So if that's where you are, I recommend you check out a video I made. I'm going to link it up here on how to tackle your debt payoff, because I think it is a very important thing to think about. For me, where I am right now, I am debt-free, and these are just the things that I've been thinking about lately. So I'm going to just share my screen so you can see kind of what I worked on, because for me, I work this way. I'm like, I need to list out every possibility. I need to have every consideration possible. I need to know what that is going to look like. I made a deck called the Roth LaRue Strategic Plan, How to Tackle Everything We Want. We hope to flesh this out a little bit more. Right now, it just has our short-term goals, long-term goals, but not actually like where we're spending our money. But I think that's going to be something that we do at the end of the year. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, I broke down kind of the different goals that I have for my short term. So you're getting a glimpse at some of the things that I want to do in the next 3 months. I want to take a birthday trip. I want to move out. I'm currently living in my mother-in-law's basement, and we are ready to move out. It was something that we couldn't do when we weren't working because we weren't working. But now I have income coming in. Ari just started his full-time work, so he's going to have income coming in, and it's something we can finally start thinking about. Yay! This one is the one I'm most excited about. And then number 3, maxing out the 401k. So how I wanted to think about each, right? I made a short considerations slide with like what the financial implications will be for each of these. So the birthday trip to Santa Fe is going to cost around $2,500, broke it down by like what everything's going to cost. Moving out might cost about $10,000 when we think about an apartment at $2,500 plus, what you have to pay to move in. You have to pay the security deposit, which is usually 1.5 months. And we're learning that a few of these places have broker fees too. Not a shocker. We paid a broker fee for our Brooklyn apartment, but it just really jumps up the price of moving out. And then if we were to hire movers, which we've done in the last move that we did, and it was so good. It felt really nice to have that flexibility to have movers. That might cost us $10,000. And maxing out the 401k. I've already contributed to this goal. So I have $17,070 left to invest, right? I have that much to hit that max for the next 3 months, which means that I need to contribute $56.90 each month for the end of the year to make that a reality. So per paycheck, we're looking at about $23.45 per paycheck. So those are the financial considerations for these goals. Then I wanted to put considerations for each short-term goal so that we can break down when we have a discussion as a couple, because Ari and I merge our finances. It was a decision that we made before we got married of like what this was going to look like when we got married. Are we going to, whatever. If you want to hear about that, let me know, because it's been an idea that I have, like talking about why we chose to merge finances and how we work through that. So let me know if that stuff is of interest. But yeah, these are all the questions I had. What do I want to do? If money weren't an issue, what would I do? And that should be like the initial thing that comes out when you think about that short-term goal. Of course, I would go if money weren't an issue. Could I do this at home? Yeah, I could do this at home, right? Like I could relax. I could enjoy some art. I could have a good time at home. But I've been wanting to take a birthday trip since my 30th last year, and I wasn't able to. So I've been feeling this like birthday trip itch. I do have an alternative, so I wanted to list it out. Our friend invited us to her lovely upstate home, and that's an option. And I'd be okay with that. But is it what I want to do? I would do that, but I could do that any weekend. I want to take a birthday trip. Although she's a really close friend of mine, so I know she would make it a birthday-esque trip too. And the downsides. You always want to have some honest cons when you make what is essentially a pros and cons list. The downsides. There is no direct flight to Santa Fe. I was surprised to find out about that. And it also feels a little last minute to be planning a trip that's almost a month away. Not impossible. I've done it before. And it also feels like it's a lot of traveling back to back because we have a wedding in California in October, and then to go back to the West Coast. It just feels like a lot of traveling. And I get tired easily. I'm a tired baby. I don't know. Is it just me? Is it? I don't know. Anyway, I listed these out, but then I also texted my group chat, which is my aunt and my sister, and I was like, what are your thoughts? And of course, like I already knew what their answer was going to be before I texted them. And maybe that's why I texted them, but they were just like, take the damn trip. Anyway, considerations to moving out. There are so many questions here that we have, that I have. These are my slides. Ari has his, that I have about where we move next, right? Do we want to live in this specific neighborhood? One has a further commute and it's going to bring higher transportation costs. One is low inventory, expensive, small space for what we can get somewhere else. Another one is more space, but still like not necessarily my ideal location. And the fourth option is no commute for Ari because he lives in the same neighborhood that he would work. But is that a neighborhood I want to live in? I don't know. I've never spent time there. So I have to check that out first. So there are so many things open here. But then another thing that came into consideration, which I honestly don't think that it should because of external factors, but I will say the Fed cut interest rates last week. And so our interest rate's going to go down. Could that be a good time for us to get in the market? Again, that all depends on, it should all depend on internal factors, right? Like how are we ready to be homeowners and not like what's happening in the market? But I will say the last couple of years has built this like scarcity around like, I feel like I should buy. So I wanted to be honest with ourselves by including this consideration there. Could we buy something small, an apartment under $400K, which seems honestly like they don't exist. I feel like $400K is like you get a studio. But I wanted to put that there. And then the last consideration that we have for moving out is rent and buy. Could we buy an investment property? And also just move out and rent somewhere not where we'd buy this investment property. So a lot of things to think about here. And this is why for me, and this works for me, I need to list it out. What are the different things that could come into play when you make this decision? I do not make any decisions lightly. Anyway, I put some pictures for Ari when we discussed this. He still needs to work on his short-term goals. But yeah, we're not going to get into the longer-term goals. You can get a glimpse of them here. But in thinking about, I'm going to stop sharing. In thinking about all of the things that I want to do in the next 3 months, it's true. I can't do everything. And so how do you break it down in what actually am I going to focus on? I think the biggest thing for me is like, what is time bound? One of three are time bound, and that is the 401k. I can only max out my 401k until December 31st. That one is the only one that's tied to a deadline. It's also the level of value that it has on my life. I will be the first to tell you that I'm desperately trying to live on my own again. Like I did not expect to be unemployed for 11 months, and I did not expect to be living with my in-laws after getting married. I didn't expect that. And I really just am yearning for the opportunity to live just with my husband in our own home. It's also thinking about what is important to you. What are you going to value most in that short time frame that you're thinking about these goals? Another thing that you saw in my consideration slides was, what are some of the risks that I'm taking and the rewards that come with these goals, right? The risks for this birthday trip is, I'm not saving for other things. I risk being tired on Tuesday when I get back to work. But I take that birthday trip, but I have some time to reflect on the year that I've had. My 30th year, I see a new place, moving out, making a premature decision on where to live because we're so desperate to move out. Reward, at least we get our own place, my own kitchen, where I can film however freely I want. So thinking about that, the pros, the cons of each decision that you're making. I also think, like, what do you have access to? What resources do you have available to help you get those goals and reach those goals? And I think I'm at a good place to be able to have equal resources for each goal that I have, right? Like we do need to save a little more to be able to move out. If we take this trip, we probably won't be able to move out until January, but I mean, pushing it back 2 months is going to probably set us up in a better place because we'll have a more clear understanding of where we're going to move. And maybe, it'll help us understand what our long-term goals are and where that fits into the decision of where we do move out to. So thinking about the resources, constraints that are really going to maybe hurt you in achieving these goals. That's kind of how I'm thinking about these goals, my short-term things that I want to do. I know there was only one that was investing and savings related, but don't worry. Those are the longer term goals. Something that I'm trying to be intentional about in this route to financial independence is how do I still achieve it while also taking trips, moving out. And so I wanted to kind of share with you like how I'm thinking about my life in general and how savings fits into that. That is all I have for you today. Let me know what you would vote on if you were me. I'd love to hear what your short-term goals are. I know we're like end of September now. So we have 3 more months until 2025. 2025, how crazy is that? That's crazy to me. So I'm curious to hear, like, what are you aiming at for the end of the year? What's your goal? Like, what's your big thing that you're like, this is going to happen come December 31st? Share it with us. Let's get inspired by each other. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Support this channel. That is the best way to do it. And I look forward to seeing you next week.